for so long, I was like, I wish I was from somewhere else. I wanted to be from a city, from New Orleans, from New York City. And I'm only just like within the last few years realizing how unique my upbringing was and how so few people get to experience that even in their lifetime.
I've really felt this need to lean into my upbringing and like lean into the positive parts of my upbringing and embrace them, and then be someone who can represent the only people who you can represent, which is like your community, like where you're from.
I know, and that's been such a learning experience for me as well, being from small town, South Louisiana. Like when I went, my whole life growing up, I was like, I want to get out of here. I need to get out of here. I want to live in New York City. I want to live in a big city. Like, I want to be able to walk somewhere. Like, I had nowhere I could walk. Like, I could walk around my neighborhood. That was it. My brother had a dirt bike, and he could, like, dirt bike 20 minutes to, like, a gas station or something. But it was just bayou, swamp.
What process happened? Because you started this in college. So like, first of all, what made you think I could do this? And why specifically glass?
Yeah. I mean, being from South Louisiana is obviously a key part of that. Growing up surrounded by the beauty of Louisiana, our natural ecosystems, that's what led me down the path to studying science and eventually engineering. And then meeting Max, my co-founder, my partner, who's from New York City. And him being from New York City was the first person, at least that I had talked to question why we weren't recycling glass. I think to me, being from a rural area, like we didn't have any recycling. And that was just normal.
Yeah.
We just threw everything away. Don't cancel me. We burned our
it.
trash.
I was going to say we burned our trash.
Don't cancel me.
Because there's no trash service either. It's not just no recycling. There's literally no trash service to pick up your trash.
I feel so safe here.
Yeah.
I feel very safe right now. That's good to know. Yeah, there's still a picture of me like on the internet with my burning couch. And I'm just like...
Oh, you don't want to know how recently I've burned a couch, so we'll move on.
So anyway, sustainability in that sense, like recycling, wasn't a huge part of my upbringing. So he was the first person to be like, why aren't we recycling glass? And sort of made me do a double take of, yeah, why aren't we recycling glass here? We're in New Orleans, we're in a huge tourist city. There's so much glass, it's all just going to the trash. What could we do about it? And I think it was the just naivete of 22-year-olds being like, well, let's do something about it. I think Gen Z, like across the board, has more of a mindset of, well, let me just fix it. I think to your point of like us watching older generations continually be failed by the system and the American dream, and for me and you, I'm sure, our government just like not doing what it seems like they should be doing, recycling being one of them. And we were just tired of it. We knew we couldn't wait around for someone else to do that because it wouldn't happen. And so we decided to just do something about it. So obviously the first step in the glass recycling process is collecting the glass. So we have a bunch of different places and ways to collect the glass. Once it gets here, our drivers will dump the glass into the pile that we call Glass Mountain. From there, it's scooped up by a front end loader and loaded into the hopper of the system, which is right here. This is where the entire like automated recycling processing starts. So the hopper meters out the glass at a certain rate that we determine based on what we're doing that day, but it's generally 10 tons per hour-ish. So it'll meter out the glass, And then we have a person standing here called the picker. So they will be watching this conveyor belt to pick out anything that looks like it might damage our equipment or just weird non-glass stuff that I have over here I can show you. So some recent finds, tongs. This is definitely from a bachelorette party in New Orleans. Just some random like stuff that we don't want going into our glass system. Bags, ropes, things like that will really mess up the process. From there, it's fed into the flattener, basically. It just flattens out the bottles. It's a roll crusher is what it's called. So then the flattened bottles will travel into the facility. This is where the metals are removed. So this is a magnetic cross belt that'll pull out metal caps and other metal things that you can see, like these little guys, you know, those bottles. From there, it'll be sent into the first size separator. So it'll basically separate big from small, to put it simply. The small stuff will be sent to the pulverizing line to turn into sand. The big stuff is fed into the optical sorters. The optical sorters can sort within nanoseconds glass from non-glass and separate colors. And that's really important for when we're making cullet, which is the material that's melted and turned back into new bottles. So cullet is what allows bottles to be turned back into bottles infinitely and be recycled over and over again. But cullet has to be color separated, and specific contaminants need to be removed, like ceramic, stone, and porcelain. So the optical sorters are able to do that very quickly and efficiently. And so that's what's the next step of the system. And essentially the two products we get out of this facility are cullet, the raw material to make new bottles, and sand for coastal restoration. And so anything that essentially is not able to be used for cullet will also pulverize into sand for coastal restoration. And that happens outside. It's very bright. So this is the pulverizing line. This is essentially the sand maker, if you will. So any of the small stuff that I talked about earlier, and then anything that isn't made into cullet will come and be made into the coastal restoration sand. So this is that sand product, which is really hot right now. But this is the main product that we want from the pulverizing line. And this is the size separator, so it'll pull out the sand first, and then a gravel, which we can recrush and turn into sand again. And then any of the reject stuff, which is usually like plastic caps, bottles, corks, things like that, that we don't want in our sand. So this pile is the reject from the cullet line. So right now we're making flint cullet, which is essentially cullet from clear bottles. So it's just the clear glass, which will be remelted and made into new clear bottles. So that's what's being made right now. And then the reject will be run again to pull out amber glass or green glass. So we have to run some of the glass through the system a few times based on what we're making. So this is over 100 tons of flint cullet. So this will be sent on a rail car to a bottle manufacturer in Oklahoma to be made into new bottles. We have to stockpile at least 100 tons because that's what fits in a rail car. So that's why we've made these beautiful flint cullet mountains, so that we can send 100 tons at a time. That's just the trash again. And when we realized glass could be turned back into sand, that's when things really clicked. Where it's like, okay, sand is a local resource that we need. We're experiencing this insane coastal erosion crisis here in Louisiana. What if we could use that sand for coastal restoration? And I think that not only like got our fire started to do this and make it work, but like the people of New Orleans really got behind that idea. Because if you live here, you know how extreme our coastal erosion crisis is and how much we drink. And those two, like combining those two for good, made sense to everyone.
All right, now that we're on the bayou, what is causing the issue of coastal erosion? Like, how long has that been going on? What's the status of reversing that?
I'm so glad you asked. Let's start with the problem, which is that we lose a football field's worth of land every 100 minutes due to coastal erosion here in Louisiana, right? That's an insane amount of land. It's an unimaginable amount. I grew up listening to this statistic and just being like, how could we ever combat this issue? And the older I get, the more I realize how, as we've said, all these issues are interconnected. So we have to kind of start from how Louisiana was built, which was, it was built by the Mississippi River. The Mississippi River deposited sediments time over time over time, deposited sediment into this area and built up the land we were standing on earlier, right? When Europeans came in, they decided that instead of letting this area continue to flood, that we should levee the Mississippi River. Which, you know, short-term thinking makes sense. If we want to live here, we can't just have it flooding all the time. And so they built structures to essentially control the Mississippi River so that instead of it flooding New Orleans or other communities along the Mississippi River, it would flow out into the Gulf of Mexico. What wasn't really thought of is that all of that sediment that built up our land is now flowing down the Mississippi into the Gulf of Mexico and essentially off like a shelf where it just disappears, right? So instead of building back our land, it's now just being wasted, essentially. All that sediment, all that sand. So we're built on a swamp. I mean, everyone knows that. South Louisiana is a swamp. The issue then comes in with the oil and gas industry and other extractive industries like logging. So logging is a simple one, right? We had these old growth cypress trees, and back in the day, all of our houses were built with cypress. And so they would cut down the cypress trees, dig canals in our wetlands to transport the trees and make logs and make houses. And then the oil and gas industry came in. And the oil and gas industry not only also dug canals, which I'll talk about why that's bad, but obviously extracted our resources. So now instead of just not having sediment being built up, we're also sinking. It's called subsidence. And so extracting resources, like when you think about it, if you have like sediment, swampy sand, and then you suck stuff out from under, you're gonna sink even more. So that was a huge issue, and then the canals that the logging industry built and the oil and gas industry built were essentially creating cuts in our marshes. Unnatural cuts. You can see it if you look at like a drone image of parts of South Louisiana, just these like lines through our swamp. And why that's an issue is that there's the Gulf of Mexico, which is salty water, and there's our wetlands and swamps, which are brackish or fresh. And when you cut these lines, you allow salt water to come into our swamps, which kills the native vegetation that's used to brackish and fresh water. That's what happened to this bayou, is that a transportation channel was built called Mr. Go, the Mississippi River Gulf Outlet Connection, to make a shorter route for transportation of goods from the Mississippi to the Gulf of Mexico. And that allowed salt water into this bayou, Bayou Bienvenue, killed all the native vegetation. This was an old growth cypress and tupelo swamp, completely destroyed. And now we have what we see in front of us, which is just open water, like not a cypress tree in sight.
Yeah.
Where it would have been like huge trees, you know, just ancient, beautiful trees that would protect right here, which is the lower Ninth Ward. And this really came to light when Katrina hit. So when Katrina hit, storm surge from the Gulf of Mexico flew through that transportation channel, because it's just this beautiful straight cut right into this bayou, and was part of the reason that the lower Ninth and St. Bernard Parish flooded so horribly during Katrina. And so just like one thing after the other has not only destroyed our wetlands and our swamps, but made it difficult for us to fight back.
Yeah, like all these issues are compounding and
Exactly.
stacking on top of each other. And
Exactly.
it's like a negative feedback loop
Exactly.
of destruction.
And then you talk about the extractive industries, right? Oil and gas industries that caused all these issues in the first place, then warmed our climate to cause worse hurricanes, to cause rising sea levels, which then compounds the issue even more.
Yeah. And the kind of like what you're talking about, what this used to look like with the cypress, is like similar to some of the like.
What is he doing? Did you get him?
Yeah, you can see him.
He's just sort of climbed up the containment of our new islands. He's just kind of chilling there.
I, like probably many people, thought gators were way more dangerous to humans, but like they kind of avoid humans.
Oh yeah, they're very shy.
And yeah, we don't have gators.
Yeah, no, I mean, people who are from Louisiana, when I tell them, like, oh, I grew up, you know, near a bayou. Oh, did you swim in it? Yeah, of course.
I walk down the bayou with both of my eyes closed.
Flesh-eating bacteria that literally eats your flesh. And that
Fun.
is becoming so much worse because of climate change.
Yeah.
And, like, more frequent, and more people are getting this because the water is so warm.
Yeah, the heating of the ocean is happening at a much faster rate than the air that we feel. So you have like all of these adverse effects from the ocean heating up to that extent. As the ocean goes, the rest of the world will go.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where it like this is one of those things that feels really heavy.
Yeah.
That it's like, how do we reverse this? And unfortunately, we're still going in like the negative direction on continuing to do the things that caused it in the first place.
But we have the solutions.
Yeah, we have all the solutions.
It's figuring out how to implement them.
Yeah.
Like,
well, and it's not even really, it's not us figuring out how, we know how they need to be implemented.
Right.
It's us like convincing the system that we live in
Yeah.
to allow us to do the work that we know that needs
Yeah.
to be done. So we should be pushing to adapt the system that we live in, or create new systems that incentivize people to do good things.
And what gets me, and what I didn't realize, you know, in the beginning of my journey, was so much of the work is so simple.
Yeah.
And I think that's where people get confused, right? Like, you talk about climate change, you talk about these insane issues, and like they're complicated and they're interconnected and they're like wide-reaching, but the solutions are actually so simple. It's not like, we don't need to create carbon capture machines and
Right.
like all, like, trees are carbon capture machines. Okay, we do not need to create this insane like rocket science solution. It's literally planting trees, planting marsh grasses, like letting the Mississippi rebuild our wetlands, like stopping extractive systems from continuing to destroy our planet. Like, the solutions are actually so simple. And that's what so much of, I feel, my work is, showing people that simple actions, simple ecosystem restorations, planting native plants, like doing these things actually has a huge impact.
Cypress trees and Spanish moss, swampy water, herring call, the sky is bleeding every color, heart wide open, air and water.
Hey, my name's Bek Markel. I'm from South Louisiana, and I've been a support scientist on the Recoast project between Glass Half Full and Tulane University. Once Glass Half Full started making enough sand to consider building land with it, we had to do a couple of preliminary studies to understand how plants and animals would react to this new sand. We started out in the greenhouse testing a couple different wetland restoration plants and how they would grow in the recycled glass sand compared to conventionally used dredged river sand. A lot of them are out here. So on both islands we have black willow, bald cypress, and giant bulrush. Those are all three plants that we tried out. We also did, I guess it's called oyster grass commonly, and which is more of a saltwater grass. We've used it in other projects. And giant cut grass is definitely out here somewhere, but those are kind of 5 of the main species that are used in restoration projects. And All of them showed the ability to grow in glass sand by itself as long as there was nutrients and water available, but they all consistently did just as well in a mix of the glass and the river sand as they did in the river sand alone. It helped us move forward into the field where we have these two big islands where one is fully dredged river sand and one is half glass, half river sand. This is all new to everybody and we're really just figuring it out at all times, but it's really neat, even though it's a small scale like all of our projects are, physically building land in open water and reestablishing plants that used to be here and making spaces for historically native species is really neat.
'Cause everybody's someone's dinner here. The show isn't for free. I pay my due, I tip my server. Generosity reciprocal, and all it's true against his wish. The fisherman ain't catch no fish, but caught a beautiful sunset and shared it all.
One of the most surprising things about starting Glass Half Full and running Glass Half Full and doing ecosystem restoration is the amount of like Republicans who fuck with it, honestly. You know, for whatever reason, but that's a unifying factor of especially here in South Louisiana, I'm sure in Texas too, of like, yeah, we do want to protect our natural ecosystems. We do rely on it. Like, we have common ground with fishermen and hunters and people who enjoy our natural ecosystem, which is most of Louisiana.
Yeah.
And so they are down for this. Yeah, and I think in the Gulf South, honestly, hurricanes and natural disasters bring that out in our communities so intensely. I think that's why we as Southerners don't say things like, well, that's what you get, you voted for that. Because every time a hurricane rolls in, we are all leveled.
Yeah.
Like, hurricanes do not decide to spare the rich people's houses. They just destroy things, and people are leveled. Obviously, there's privileges with different people and what they're able to do during hurricanes, but in so many ways, in terms of left and right, we're all, for lack of a better phrase, we're all in this together. Yeah. Like, when a storm hits, and it's in the aftermath of those storms that we realize how we can be in community. And before I even knew what mutual aid was, I knew that when hurricanes hit, we all took care of each other.
Exactly. All of this that we're talking about too, like ecosystem restoration and the people that you deal with is like one of the most beautiful ways to build community also, because like it's such a connective tissue to foster nature together and like to bring about new life literally with other people.
And for us, like being in the swamp, in the mud, again, it's that same concept. It's like leveling. Everyone is the same when you're in the swamp. It does not matter what your job title is. We're in the swamp. We're digging in the mud, planting trees and planting marsh grasses. Like, yeah, I don't care if you're a CEO at Shell. We're both in the swamp right now.
Yeah. Well, I kind of do care if you're a CEO at Shell.
If you're a process engineer.
Yeah. I don't care if you work at Shell. If you're the CEO, I kind of care a little bit.
Belonging to the beauty of it all.